The rifle weighed 6 pounds. The order weighed more. Sergeant Cole Brannigan pressed his cheek against the stock and watched the compound through the thermal scope. 42 hostiles. 1 target. The predator queen of Vrethis, the creature responsible for the annihilation of 2 human colony worlds and the disappearance of 11,000 civilians. Command wanted her head separated from her spine, and they wanted it done before sunrise on this frozen rock that smelled like sulfur and old iron. Cole breathed out. Steady hands. His spotter, a wiry kid named Danny Hale, lay beside him on the ridgeline, whispering numbers into his earpiece. Wind speed, humidity, distance to target. All the math that turned a man into a weapon. "You see her?" Danny asked. "Not yet." The compound was a nest of black stone and bioluminescent resin, alien architecture that looked grown rather than built, as though someone had convinced a cathedral to have nightmares. Guard creatures patrolled in pairs. They moved on 4 legs and had faces like cracked dinner plates, all teeth and no expression, the kind of thing that made your brain file it under wrong before your conscious mind caught up. Cole had been killing aliens for 9 years. He had been good at it for 8. The 1 year he was not good at it, his squad had paid the price, and he had carried the 6 names tattooed on his left forearm ever since. He did not think about those names now. He did not think about anything except the crosshairs and the cold. Then the gate opened. She walked out alone. Cole's finger floated above the trigger. The scope framed her in green thermal light. And then every calculation Danny had whispered became noise, became static, became absolutely useless. The predator queen of Vrethis was 7 feet tall. She moved with the kind of fluid, unhurried grace that made the air itself seem to step aside. Her skin was dark, somewhere between obsidian and deep violet, and it caught the compound's dim light in ways that should not have been possible, as though she had swallowed a dying star and it was still trying to get out. Her eyes were large and luminous, gold shot through with veins of copper, and they swept the ridgeline like searchlights. She was looking for him, not the squat, not the threat, him specifically, as if she had known the moment his scope settled on her face. Cole felt his hands go wrong, not shaking, worse, still, perfectly, horribly still. Unlike his muscles had received a message his brain had not approved. His finger would not move, not forward to the trigger, not backward to safety. It hung in the dead space between action and refusal. And for 3 full seconds, Sergeant Cole Brannigan, the man who had dropped a Vrethian warlord at 900 meters in a sandstorm, could not remember why he was holding a gun. She tilted her head. It was such a small gesture, almost human, almost curious. Like a woman noticing a strange bird on her windowsill and wondering whether to be charmed or annoyed. "Cole," Danny hissed, "take the shot." He could not. The mission briefing had described her as a monster. The intelligence files had called her the apex of a species engineered for predation. Every image they had shown him was grainy, dark, taken from failing satellites or dying soldiers' helmet cameras. None of them had captured this. None of them had prepared him for the terrible, disorienting reality that the most dangerous being in the known galaxy looked at him across 800 meters of frozen ground and made him feel like he had been caught doing something embarrassing. "Cole." Danny's voice cracked. "Cole, what are you doing?" He lowered the rifle. The motion was slow and deliberate, and felt like stepping off a cliff in a dream where you know you can fly, but have not tested it yet. The stock left his cheek. The scope lost her face. The crosshairs drifted down to dirt and rock and nothing. Danny grabbed his shoulder. "What the hell are you doing?" Cole did not answer because he did not have one. He stared at the compound. She was still standing there, he still watching. And even without the scope, he could feel those gold eyes on his skin like warm pressure. Like standing too close to a fireplace after a long walk through snow. She raised one hand, 5 clawed fingers. Each one could open a man from throat to belt buckle without effort. He knew this because he had seen the forensic photos, had memorized the wound patterns, had trained specifically to counter the reach and speed of those hands. She waved. Not a threat. Not a gesture of dominance or challenge. She waved at him the way someone waves at a neighbor across a parking lot. "We need to leave," Cole said. "We need to complete the mission. The mission is done. You did not fire a single round." Cole picked up the rifle, slung it over his back, and started crawling backwards off the ridge. His heart was doing something arrhythmic and strange, like a drummer who had lost the beat and was trying to find it by hitting harder. Danny stared at him with an expression that mixed betrayal and terror in equal proportion. "She saw us, Danny. She looked right at us, and she did not call her guards. She did not signal an attack. She waved." "So what?" Cole paused. He did not have the words for what he had seen in those gold eyes. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. The peculiar calm of someone who knows exactly what you came to do and has decided to find it interesting rather than offensive. "So, I am going back down there," Cole said. "Alone, without the rifle." Danny Hale looked at him like he had announced his intention to eat his own boots. "You are out of your mind." Cole considered this. "Probably," he said. "Cover me anyway." The walk down the ridge took 20 minutes and felt like 20 years. Cole left everything that made him a soldier in a pile on the frozen ground. Rifle, sidearm, knife. The ceramic plate carrier that had stopped 2 rounds on Kepler Station and 1 on the burning fields of Haldis 4. He kept his uniform because the temperature was -30, and he was reckless, not suicidal. But everything designed to harm another living thing he left behind like old luggage. The compound guards saw him coming. They were bigger up close. The 4-legged creatures stood at chest height, and their cracked plate faces tracked his approach with the focused attention of predators calculating whether something was food or furniture. Their limbs ended in hooked claws that left gouges in the black stone as they paced. But one of them made a sound like a cello string being tightened past its limit. A rising whine that vibrated in Cole's sternum and made his teeth itch. He kept walking. The gate was open. She had left it open. For him. He understood this the way you understand a sentence in a language you do not speak, not through the words, but through the rhythm and context and the sheer audacity of someone leaving their front door open for an armed intruder. Former armed intruder. Current unarmed idiot. The interior of the compound was warmer than expected. The bioluminescent resin on the walls pulsed with a faint blue-green light that reminded him of deep ocean footage. The kind of footage that always made him feel simultaneously peaceful and aware that everything in frame could eat him. The air smelled different here. Not the sulfur of the planet's surface, but something else. Something almost floral, like jasmine soaked in copper. He heard her before he saw her. Footsteps. Not heavy, not light. Precise. Each one placed with the mechanical confidence of something that had never tripped, never stumbled, never had to second-guess where its body was in space. The sound bounced off the resin walls and arrived at his ears from 3 directions at once, making it impossible to tell where she was approaching from. Then she was there, standing 10 feet away, framed by the glow of her own architecture. The predator queen of Vrethis looked at Sergeant Cole Brannigan with those gold and copper eyes and said nothing. She was even more devastating at this distance. Her features were sharp but not harsh, angular in a way that suggested they had been designed by someone who understood that beauty was just danger wearing a different outfit. Her jaw was strong. Her cheekbones could have been used as architectural references. And her mouth, which according to the intelligence files contained a secondary set of retractable fangs capable of puncturing standard-issue body armor, was curved in the faintest suggestion of amusement. Cole's brain was doing the thing it did in firefights, cataloging details at a speed that his conscious mind could not match. Her hands were at her sides, no weapons visible. Her posture was open, relaxed, the posture of someone standing in their own kitchen waiting for the coffee to finish. Behind her, deeper in the compound, he could hear movement, other creatures, her subjects, her soldiers, her swarm, and every one of them could reach this hallway in seconds. She had not called them. "I was sent to end your life," Cole said. His voice came out flatter than he intended, stripped of everything except the fact. She studied him, her head tilted again, that small, curious motion. And for a moment, the gold in her eyes seemed to shift, like sunlight moving across the surface of a lake. Then she spoke. Her voice was lower than he expected, rich and textured, and carrying an accent that did not belong to any language he had ever studied. The translator implant behind his left ear caught the sounds, chewed on them, and delivered the meaning with a half-second delay that made the conversation feel like talking to someone across a canyon. "I know," she said. "You have a very loud heartbeat." Cole blinked. "Excuse me?" "Your species broadcasts its fear through its circulatory system. I could hear your pulse from inside, fast, rhythmic, distinctive." She paused. "You were on the ridge for 11 minutes before I walked out. Your heartbeat changed 4 times. Anticipation, focus, confusion." She took one step closer. "And then something I do not have a word for in your language. The 4th change, when you lowered your weapon." Cole's mouth was dry. He was standing 10 feet from the single deadliest organism humanity had ever cataloged. And she was describing his heartbeat the way a musician describes a song. "What do you call it in your language?" he asked. She considered this for a moment that lasted longer than it should have, her eyes moving across his face with an attention that felt less like scrutiny and more like reading. "The closest translation," she said, "would be the moment a predator recognizes another predator and decides not to hunt." The silence that followed was enormous. It filled the corridor and pressed against the glowing walls and sat between them like a third person in the conversation, someone who knew more than either of them and was choosing not to share. "You think I am a predator?" Cole said. "I know you are. Your species is the most successful invasive predator this galaxy has produced in 400,000 years. You are small and slow and fragile, and you have conquered more territory in 2 centuries than my kind managed in 12. You do not have claws or fangs or venom. You have something worse." "What?" "Stubbornness," she said, "paired with creativity. It is a horrifying combination." Something in Cole's chest shifted, not his heart, which was still doing its desperate drumline performance. Something deeper. Something in the architecture of his assumptions, a load-bearing wall that had just been told it was optional. "The colonies," he said. "Haldis, New Providence, 11,000 people." Her expression did not change, but something behind it did. A tectonic motion beneath the surface of her face that he could feel more than see. "Sit with me," she said. "There is much you do not know." She turned and walked deeper into the compound. The blue-green light followed her like a loyal pet. Her guards, the cracked plate creatures, shifted to let her pass, and then reformed behind her, a wall of teeth and claws that now stood between Cole and the exit. He followed her. The room she led him to was not what he expected. It was small and circular, and the walls were covered in something that looked like hand-pressed paper, covered in markings that reminded him of old star charts. There was no furniture except two low platforms that served as seats, and between them, a basin filled with a liquid that glowed faintly amber. She sat on one platform. She gestured to the other. Cole sat. The platform was warm, almost body temperature, and it adjusted to his weight with a slow, organic give that made him think of muscle rather than material. "Haldus and New Providence were not my doing," she said. The words hit him like a car running a red light. He had spent 3 months training to end this being's life based on the foundational assumption that she had ordered the destruction of those colonies. Every briefing, every intelligence packet, every pre-mission speech from Colonel Yates had been built on this single fact. That is not what our intelligence says. Your intelligence is correct that my species was responsible. It is incorrect about which member of my species gave the order. She dipped one clawed finger into the amber basin. The liquid rippled. I have 7 sisters. Each commands a brood. Each controls territory. The one you call the Predator Queen is a title, not a name. Your intelligence agencies have been attributing the actions of all 8 of us to one. Cole processed this like a man trying to swallow a stone. You are telling me there are 8 of you. There were 8. There are now 6. I eliminated 2 of them. Why? Because they destroyed your colonies. The room went very quiet. The amber liquid in the basin continued its soft glow, indifferent to the fact that the entire strategic foundation of the human-Vrethian conflict had just been reclassified from bedrock to sand. You went to war with your own sisters, Cole said, over human colonies. I went to war with my own sisters over an act of stupidity that would provoke your species into doing what your species does best, which is arriving in overwhelming numbers with increasingly creative methods of destruction and not stopping until the problem no longer exists. She withdrew her finger from the basin. My sisters thought humans were prey. I have studied your history. You are not prey. You are the thing that makes predators go extinct. Cole sat with this. It rearranged itself inside his skull like furniture in a room that had always been arranged wrong. Why did you come outside tonight? But you knew I was there. I knew someone was there. I heard the heartbeat. I wanted to see what kind of human they had sent to kill me. And they sent the interesting kind. Cole had been called many things in his military career. Reliable, efficient, stubborn to the point of operational liability. Interesting was new. What makes me the interesting kind? You lowered your weapon. No human has ever done that in the presence of a Vrethian queen. You should understand what that means. In my culture, lowering a weapon in the presence of a superior predator is not surrender. It is a challenge of a different kind. It says, I do not need a weapon to be dangerous. Cole had not intended to say anything of the sort. He had lowered his weapon because his hands had stopped obeying and his brain had short-circuited, and some ancient, pre-verbal part of him had looked at this being and decided that shooting her would be like burning a library to stay warm. He did not say this. I want to propose something, she said. And I want you to listen with the part of your brain that made you walk down that ridge unarmed, not the part that followed orders to come here in the first place. I am listening. My remaining sisters will attack your inner colonies within the year. The brood on Vrethis Prime is mobilizing. The 2 I eliminated were the weakest of us, and their broods have been absorbed by the others. When they come, It will not be raiding parties and colony strikes. It will be a full territorial assault on your core systems. Cole felt the temperature drop despite the warm room. How many? Enough that your current fleet will not hold. Your species is extraordinary at adaptation. But adaptation requires time, and my sisters will not give you time. They will strike fast and from multiple vectors. By the time your military adjusts, you will have lost 3 core worlds and the manufacturing capacity to rebuild your fleet. And you are telling me this because? Because I want to help you stop them. The sentence hung in the air between them, rotating slowly, showing him different faces of itself. An alliance with a Vrethian queen, the species that had eaten 2 of their colony worlds, the species whose biology was designed from the cellular level for the express purpose of being the most efficient living weapons in the galaxy. Help us, Cole repeated. Why? Because if my sisters succeed, they will eventually come for me. Because your species and mine are both predators, and the galaxy is large enough for both. Because I have studied what happens to species that go to war with humanity, and the list of those species is significantly shorter than the list of species that chose partnership. She leaned forward. The blue-green light caught the angles of her face, and for a moment she looked like something out of an old myth. A creature that lived at the crossroads of 2 roads and asked travelers questions that changed their lives depending on the answer. And because you walked down a ridge unarmed to talk to me, which means you already know, somewhere in that stubborn human brain, that there is a better outcome here than the one you were ordered to deliver. Cole Brannigan sat on an alien seat in an alien compound on a frozen planet that smelled like jasmine and copper. And he thought about the 6 names on his forearm. He thought about Haldis. He thought about 11,000 missing people and 2 destroyed worlds, and a war that suddenly looked very different from the inside than it had from the briefing room. If I go back to my command with this, he said, they will think you have compromised me. Have I? He thought about her eyes, gold and copper and ancient and amused, and holding something in them that he did not have a name for yet, but wanted to. I need proof, he said. I need something I can bring back that they cannot dismiss as manipulation. Troop movements, fleet positions, something concrete. She stood. The motion was effortless. A single uncoiling of limbs that reminded him of footage of great cats rising from rest. All that power compressed into smoothness. Come with me. She led him deeper. Through corridors that pulsed with light and hummed with frequencies he could feel in his joints. Past chambers where her creatures moved in organized patterns that looked less like animal behavior and more like logistics. Into a room that contained, projected in holographic light from the amber liquid, a complete strategic map of the Vrethian territories. 6 broods, 6 queens, fleet compositions, staging points, timetables, everything. Cole stared at the map. It was the single most valuable piece of military intelligence any human had ever been handed. And it was being given to him by the target he had been sent to kill, in a room that smelled like flowers and metal, on a night when nothing had gone according to plan and everything had gone exactly the way it needed to. Record it, she said. Your implant has a data buffer. I know this because I have studied your military equipment as thoroughly as I have studied your history. He activated his implant. The data streamed in. Numbers and coordinates and movement projections and fleet strengths that would keep the intelligence analysts at Central Command busy for months. Why me? He asked while the data transferred. You could have contacted our government, our diplomats, our leaders. Your leaders would have sent more soldiers. Your diplomats would have formed committees. You lowered your gun. That is not a qualification. It is the only one that matters. The data transfer completed. Cole stood in the heart of a Vrethian compound with enough intelligence to reshape the war, given to him by a queen who should have been his enemy. And he realized that the weight he had felt on the ridge was gone. The rifle's 6 pounds, the order's invisible tonnage, all of it had been replaced by something new. Something that felt less like duty and more like purpose. "I need to go," he said. "My spotter thinks I am dead or insane." Both are reasonable assumptions. Was that humor? It sounded like humor. The translator implant was not calibrated for Vrethian jokes, and Cole filed this under things he would need to figure out later. "I will come back," he said. She looked at him. Those gold eyes, up close, amongst in the glow of the strategic map, contained depths he was only beginning to understand. Layers of intelligence and loneliness, and the particular exhaustion of someone who had been the smartest person in every room for so long, that meeting someone who might keep up felt less like a convenience and more like a rescue. "I know," she said. He walked back through the corridor. The guards parted. The gate was still open. The frozen air hit his face like a slap, and the planet's sulfur smell flooded back. But underneath it, he could still catch the ghost of Jasmine and Copper clinging to his uniform. Danny was where he left him. Flat on the ridge, scope pressed to his eye, vibrating with the specific frequency of someone who had been composing Cole's eulogy for the past hour, and was furious about having wasted the creative effort. "When you are alive," Danny said. It was not a celebration. It was an accusation. "I am alive." "Did you complete the mission?" Cole sat down on the frozen ground and looked at the compound. The gate was closing. Somewhere inside, a queen who had waged war against her own family to prevent the destruction of a species not her own was standing in a room full of star charts, and she had trusted him. "The mission has changed," Cole said. Danny stared at him. "You cannot change a mission." "I just did." Cole pulled up the data on his implant and let Danny see the first layer of it. Troop movements, fleet sizes, the name of every Vrethian brood queen, and the location of every staging ground for the coming invasion. Danny's face went through approximately 9 expressions in 4 seconds, and settling on one that lived somewhere between disbelief and reluctant awe. "Where did you get this?" "She gave it to me." "The target gave you classified military intelligence." "The target is not the target. There are 6 queens, Danny. 2 of them destroyed our colonies. She eliminated those 2. The remaining 4 are planning a full-scale invasion of our core systems, and she wants to help us stop it." Danny opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He looked like a man who had ordered a sandwich and been handed a live grenade and was trying to figure out which part to bite. "Command is going to lose their collective minds," Danny said. "Command is going to verify this data, realize it checks out, and then they are going to want to talk to her. And you are going to be the one who brokers that conversation? The sergeant who was sent to assassinate her? I am the one she trusts. She is a Vrethian queen. Her species eats people, literally. Her species is not monolithic. That is the entire point." Danny was quiet for a long time. The wind screamed across the ridge, and the compound glowed blue-green against the black landscape, and somewhere above them, invisible in the dark sky, a fleet of human warships waited in orbit for the confirmation signal that would never come. "What do we tell Colonel Yates?" Danny asked. "We tell him the truth, that the mission parameters were based on incomplete intelligence, that the strategic landscape is fundamentally different from what we were briefed, and that we have an opportunity to prevent a war instead of fighting one. He is going to court-martial you. Maybe, but he is going to read this data first. And when he does, the court-martial conversation will become very different. Cole stood up and started packing his gear. The rifle went back in its case. The sidearm went back on his hip. He reassembled himself as a soldier piece by piece. But something in the assembly was different now. Rearranged, like a machine that had been rebuilt to do the same job in a completely new way. Danny. What? When we get back to the ship, I need you to keep your mouth shut until I have briefed Yates directly. No squad chatter, no mess room stories. This stays between us until command has processed it. Danny looked at the compound one more time. You really believe her? Cole thought about the room with the star charts, the amber basin, the way she had said "I know" when he told her he would come back. That not with hope or relief, but with certainty, the way you acknowledge gravity or the passage of time. She went to war with her own family to protect people she has never met, from a species she has every biological reason to hunt. Yes, I believe her. Danny exhaled a cloud of white vapor into the frozen air and shook his head the way people shake their heads when reality has outpaced their ability to form objections. Fine. But if she eats you, I am putting that in the mission report exactly as it happens. Fair. They packed up and moved off the ridge. Two small human shapes against a vast alien landscape, carrying in their implants the seeds of something that had not existed 24 hours ago. An alliance. The walk back to the extraction point took 3 hours. Cole spent every step of it thinking about gold eyes and copper veins and the sound of a voice that had evolved for command but chosen to ask. Colonel Yates was not a man who enjoyed surprises. He stood behind his desk on the command ship, the heavy cruiser Sentinel, and his face cycled through something like the 5 stages of grief compressed into 90 seconds as Cole delivered the briefing. The office was small and gray and military in the way that all military offices are military, stripped of personality to make room for function. A star chart glowed on the wall behind Yates, showing the current deployment of the 7th Fleet. Next to it, a framed photograph of Yates shaking hands with the Secretary General at the commissioning ceremony, the only personal item in the room, and even that was functional, a reminder of who he answered to. Cole stood at attention and let the data do the talking. Yates watched the holographic projections rotate over his desk. Brood locations, fleet compositions, invasion timetables. Each data point verified against what human intelligence had already gathered and where they overlapped. The match was exact. Where they diverged, the Vrethian data was more detailed by orders of magnitude. She gave you this freely, Yates said. It was not a question. Yes, sir. The target we sent you to eliminate. She is not the target, sir. The intelligence was wrong, not fabricated but incomplete. We were attributing the actions of multiple queens to one individual. And this individual claims to have eliminated 2 of her own sisters in retaliation for the colony attacks. Yes, sir? Yates leaned back. For he was a tall man with iron-gray hair and the particular kind of tired eyes that come from 2 decades of making decisions that get people killed or kept alive based on information that is never as complete as it needs to be. Brannigan, do you understand what you are asking me to do? I am asking you to verify the intelligence and then open a channel. You are asking me to partner with a Vrethian, the species that turned Haldis into a graveyard. I am asking you to partner with a Vrethian who punished the ones who did it. There is a difference, sir. Yates looked at the data again. The invasion timetable showed 4 brood fleets converging on human core systems in a coordinated strike. Arrival estimate, 7 months. Fleet strength, approximately 3 times what the 7th Fleet could counter. "Ike, if this is accurate," Yates said slowly, "we cannot hold the inner colonies." "No, sir. Not without help." "And her help looks like what, exactly? She turns her brood against her sisters?" "She fragments their coordination. 4 queens striking together are overwhelming. 4 queens striking separately, while one of their own disrupts their supply lines, and communication relays are manageable." Yates was quiet for a long time. The star chart on the wall hummed. "I need to take this above my head," he said finally. "Way above. This is an Admiralty decision, possibly a civilian government decision." "Understood, sir. But the timetable does not allow for the usual committee process. If we wait for full political authorization, the invasion will be underway before the ink is dry." "What do you propose?" "A meeting. Direct. You and her. On neutral ground. I will facilitate." "You are asking me to meet face to face with a Vrethian queen." "I walked into her compound unarmed, sir. She gave me the keys to the war. The least we can offer is a conversation." Yates studied him. Cole could feel the assessment happening, the quiet calculation that every commanding officer performs when a subordinate brings them something that is either career-ending brilliance or career-ending insanity. And the two are indistinguishable at first glance. "You trust her," Yates said. "I trust the data. The data says she has more to lose from her sister's winning than we do." "That is not what I asked." Cole paused. "Yes, sir. I trust her." Yates picked up the data tablet and stared at the invasion timetable like a man reading his own medical chart. "Arrange the meeting. On the moon of Terrace 6. It is in the buffer zone. 3 days. I will bring a diplomatic attaché and a security detail. She comes alone or with minimal escort. And Brannigan?" "Sir?" "If this goes wrong, your career is not the thing that ends. Understood?" "Understood, sir." Cole left the office and walked down the corridor of the Sentinel, past crew members who nodded at him without knowing that the war they were fighting had just changed shape beneath their feet. Danny was waiting at the mess hall, nursing a coffee and looking like a man who had not slept and was running on pure anxiety and caffeine. "Well, Terrace 6, 3 days." Danny put down his coffee. "He agreed?" "He agreed to a meeting. The rest depends on her." Cole pulled up his implant and composed a message. It would be transmitted on the frequency she had given him, a channel so encrypted that even the Sentinel's own communications officers would not be able to crack it. The message was simple. "Terrace 6, 3 days. Bring your map." The response came in 4 minutes. Not words. A sound file. A recording of a single Vrethian heartbeat, steady and slow and deliberate. The translator implant flagged it with a cultural annotation that Cole had to read 3 times. Among the Vrethian queens, sending one's heartbeat was an expression of agreement sealed with trust. It meant, I am showing you the rhythm of my life. I am showing you how to find me in the dark. Cole listened to it once, then again. Then he closed the message and stared at the ceiling of the mess hall and wondered exactly when his mission had stopped being about ending a life and started being about building something that did not exist yet. "Mark, you are smiling," Danny said. "That is terrifying. Shut up and drink your coffee." The moon of Terrace 6 was a gray marble of dust and low gravity, no atmosphere to speak of, neutral territory because nobody wanted it. The meeting point was a decommissioned mining station, a pressurized dome of human construction that had been abandoned a decade ago when the ore veins ran dry. It was ugly and functional and thoroughly unremarkable, which made it perfect. Cole arrived 6 hours early. He walked the station room by room, checking seals, testing the atmosphere generators, making sure the environmental systems could sustain both human and Vrethian biology. Her species breathed a slightly different nitrogen-oxygen mix, and the station's systems needed adjustment. He spent 2 hours on the calibration, now cross-referencing the biological data from the intelligence files with the corrections she had transmitted through their encrypted channel. Danny set up on a ridge overlooking the dome because Danny was fundamentally incapable of not having a contingency overwatch position. And Cole did not argue because some habits were worth respecting. Colonel Yates arrived with a diplomatic officer named Lisa Corbin and a 4-person security detail. Corbin was small and sharp and had the eyes of someone who had negotiated treaties on 6 worlds and trusted none of the parties involved. She shook Cole's hand with a grip that said, "I am here to do my job, and you had better not have wasted my time." "Walk me through it," she said. Cole described the Queen. Not the intelligence file version, not the monster from the briefings, but the actual being he had met. Her intelligence, her strategic thinking, her decision to wage war against her own kind over a principle. Corbin listened with the focused attention of someone building a mental model from raw data. "She speaks through translator implants?" "She speaks in Vrethian. The implant handles the rest. There is a half-second delay. Do not fill the silence. She is choosing her words, not stalling." "What does she want from this meeting?" "A formal alliance. Coordinated military action against the 4 remaining queens. In exchange, territorial recognition for her brood and a cessation of hostilities between her faction and human forces." "That is a lot to ask." "She is offering a lot. Without her, we lose the inner colonies." Corbin looked at Yates. Yates looked at the dome's entrance. "She is here," Yates said. A ship descended through the thin atmosphere of Taris 6, with the silent, predatory grace of an owl dropping toward a field mouse. It was small by Vrethian standards, a personal transport, not a warship. It landed 200 meters from the dome, and its hull opened like a mouth. She walked out alone. The environmental suit she wore was minimal, designed for the vacuum walk between her ship and the dome's airlock. It did nothing to conceal what she was. 7 feet of engineered lethality moving across gray dust in low gravity, each step a controlled expression of power, voluntarily restrained. She entered the airlock. The pressure equalized. The inner door opened, and she stood in the room with them. The security detail did exactly what security details do in the presence of something their training has classified as a mortal threat. Hands went to weapons. Stances widened. The room filled with the particular kind of tension that precedes either a gunfight or a diplomatic breakthrough and is identical in both cases. "Stand down," Yates said. His voice was steady, but his jaw was tight. She looked at them. Those gold and copper eyes moved across each face in the room, reading them the way Cole had seen analysts read data streams, fast and complete and missing nothing. Then she looked at Cole. Something in her expression shifted. Not a smile, not quite, but a softening of the angles. A recalibration of her features that communicated recognition and something warmer than recognition. And something that the translator implant could not process because it was not a word, it was a frequency. "Sergeant Brannigan," she said, "your heartbeat has improved." Corbin glanced at Cole. Cole kept his face neutral. "Your Majesty," he said, "this is Colonel Yates, commanding officer of the 7th Fleet, and diplomatic officer Lisa Corbin, authorized to negotiate on behalf of the United Earth Council." "I know who they are," she said. "I have read their files." Yates blinked. "You have files on us." "I have files on every human above the rank of captain in your military hierarchy." It seemed prudent. She walked to the center of the room. Her movements in the enclosed space were careful, deliberately non-threatening, a conscious modulation of her natural presence to avoid triggering the fight response she could clearly see in every human in the room. I also know that your fleet cannot withstand my sister's coordinated assault. You know this now too, thanks to the intelligence I provided through your sergeant. She turned to Corbin. You are the one who will decide. The colonel and the sergeant have already decided. I can see it. But you are the mechanism through which the decision becomes official. So I will address myself to you. Corbin, to her credit, did not flinch. Go ahead. My 4 remaining sisters command a combined force of approximately 800 warships and 12 million ground troops. They have agreed to coordinate for the first time in our species' history, united by the shared belief that humanity is prey to be harvested. Though I have 300 warships and 4 million troops under my command, I also have the one thing they do not, which is knowledge of their plans and the willingness to share it with their intended victims. Corbin processed this with the mechanical efficiency of someone who had heard a lot of impossible propositions and was calibrating this one against the scale. What do you want in return? Formal recognition of my territory, a cessation of hostilities between my brood and human forces, and a seat at whatever table your species uses to decide the future of this region of space. You want a diplomatic relationship with the species yours has been hunting. I want a partnership with a species that does not know how to stay hunted. The room was silent for 4 full heartbeats. Yates spoke first. If we agree to this, how do we coordinate? Your military structure is biological. Ours is hierarchical. The communication systems are incompatible. They are not incompatible. They are different. Your Sergeant Brannigan has already demonstrated that the gap between different and incompatible is smaller than you think. He walked into my compound, unarmed, and walked out with enough intelligence to reshape your entire strategic posture. That is not incompatibility. That is proof of concept. Cole felt her glance land on him again, brief, warm, like a hand placed on his shoulder for 1 second and then removed, leaving the warmth behind. Corbin looked at her datapad. She looked at Yates. She looked at the Queen. I need to take this to the Council. Of course, I will remain on Terrace 6 for 72 hours. After that, the window of strategic advantage begins to close. My sisters are not fools. They will notice my absence from my territory and draw conclusions. 72 hours, Corbin repeated, for a decision that reshapes interstellar diplomacy. Your species split the atom in 4 years once it decided to. You mapped your own genome in 13. 72 hours to say yes to survival seems generous. Something that might have been a smile crossed Corbin's face. I will recommend approval. The meeting lasted another 2 hours. Details, logistics, communication protocols, the specific mechanisms by which a human fleet and a Vrethian brood would coordinate a multi-front defensive campaign against 4 hostile queens. Cole watched it unfold with a strange double awareness of someone who is both inside a moment and outside it. An understanding that what was happening in this ugly mining station on a forgotten moon was the hinge on which everything would turn. When it was over, Yates and Corbin returned to their shuttle. The security detail filed out. Cole lingered. She was standing by the viewport, looking out at the gray surface of Terry 6. And for the first time since he had met her, she looked not dangerous, not regal, not terrifying, but tired. The kind of tired that comes from carrying something too heavy for too long without anyone to hand it to. It went well, Cole said. It went as well as could be expected when asking a species to trust the thing that has been eating it. We are not that fragile. No, you are not. She turned from the viewport. That is what makes you extraordinary. He stood there, in the space between what the mission had been and what it had become. And he understood that this was not an ending. It was the architecture of a beginning. The foundation laid in an impossible conversation between two predators who had looked at each other across 800 meters of frozen ground and chosen something other than the obvious. "I will be your liaison," he said, "if you will have me. I would not have anyone else." He nodded. She inclined her head, a gesture that the translator implant identified as deep respect, and that Cole, in the part of his brain that had walked down a ridge unarmed, recognized as something more than respect and far too early to name. He walked to the airlock. He turned back once. She was watching him. Gold and copper, ancient and luminous. "Cole," she said, and it was the first time she had used his name. "Yes? Your heartbeat. What about it?" "It is steady now." He held her gaze for 3 seconds. Then he put on his helmet, cycled the airlock, and stepped out onto the gray dust of Terrace 6, carrying in his chest a rhythm that had changed and would not change back. Danny's voice crackled in his ear from the overwatch position. "Still alive?" "Still alive." "Did she eat anyone?" "Not today." "Progress?" Cole smiled inside his helmet and walked toward the shuttle. Toward the fleet, toward the war that was coming and the alliance that would meet it. Behind him, through the dome's viewport, a queen watched him go. And for the first time in a very long war, neither predator was alone.